Hi and welcome to my Swamp Biome guide for Valheim. I'm Icon and this video will guide you through all you need to know to survive here. I'm going to talk about basic general tips and tricks. I'm going to talk about how to beat those enemies and what you can gain here. So this video might be pretty spoiler heavy at some ends, so I'll warn you before that happens, because the first half of the video I'll only talk about how tackling the challenges here. So let's get started. First up, a few commodities which are just awesome to have. Poison resistance meat. Just lowers the damage over time poison does, and you will really enjoy that against a few enemies, especially if you're not that accustomed to the enemies there. I can strongly recommend that. Apart from that, stamina meat is very useful because you have a lot of water here. Water drains stamina really quickly. Also, the swamps permanently keep you wet. That's not only the rain here. Basically, once you're wet, you won't be drying anymore in the swamps. So stamina regeneration and health regeneration are lowered due to the wetness. Long story short behind that, it's really good to have a sudden boost of stamina if that's ever necessary. Right now I'm out of those healing pots, so if you have healing meat, also really useful to counteract that damage over time in the last bit of a second. Apart from that, bring up as heavy armor as you can, the more the better, and the heavier your weapons, the better, because basically when you're only used to meadows and black forest, there's gonna be nothing more deadly than the swamps for you. So, after that's all been said and done, let's get into there and talk about the enemies. So from here on, I'll also be a little bit spoiler heavy towards the enemies, because I'll also talk about what their uses are. So, well, it's going to be a little bit hard. I hope you guys don't mind. So here goes the Draug. The Draug is your basic go-to enemy here. I strongly recommend you to block at least the first blow. This didn't work this time as well as I wanted to. Most of the time, if you're able to block the first blow, you can attack them often enough to send them into a staggering momentum, and then you're basically good off. Draug are really important sources of entrails. Entrails are really a good friend in your kitchen, as disgusting as that might be. Entrails are good for your kitchen. You'll notice why. So, when you have to traverse through water in the swamps, you should always be careful about that. But let's take down those blobs before we talk about the water further. So blobs are your, well, basic poisonous enemy here. The specialty of them, you already noticed that they have that movement pattern where they jumpy all day. So as you see here, my numbers here are indicated in gray. That's because piercing weapons are not necessarily the strongest against those. So blobs are also not vulnerable against sharp weapons either. And you see here, they jump on you and then they release this point blank AoE attack. So if you really want to dodge them, you just have to roll away when they did that AoE, when they jump right next to you. They do that AoE and then you can just go away. Oozes are not that desirable in terms of farmability, because they don't really drop anything you desperately want. So they are mostly a nuisance. I really like to go for them, well, either kiting them and shooting them, even though the arrows aren't the most effective weapon, or I just sip in a poison resistance meat and clobber them down. That's very useful as well. Alright, let's keep going. So I wanted to talk about water. Water in the swamps is your enemy, because there's a particularly nasty enemy in the water, and that's the leech. Leeches just wait for you to step into the water and then they just attack you. So leeches can be well noticed by this. You see these yellow sparkles? They basically do that whenever they try to attack you while you're on the coast, and that gives them away quite decently. So I really like to use the stack breaker hammer against them like this. You see here, this is a higher range than the leech actually has, and therefore the leech never really reaches you. Leeches drop blood bags, and blood bags are oh so desirable. Basically, blood bags are health potions, so you might want to farm leeches as much as possible. What also works pretty decently against leeches is just waiting until they attacked, until they just have released their attack and then step forward and start slashing. If your first strike connects, keep going. If not, run away, rinse and repeat. Because when you manage to connect the first blow on them, you basically already won. And yeah. So here, how I like to go around with water. Water, sprinting and jumping is really, really powerful. Because leeches won't be able to bite you while you're sprinting and jumping. It's also enough to just sprint, but I really like to do both of them. So, that's leeches, Drog, and Blobs. But that's not all the swamp has to offer for us. So let's keep going. You'll also find in the swamps locations where, let's see, here, the red fire shine there in the background. That's what we're looking for. The swamps are really, really deadly, but also really valuable. So the next thing you might be looking for in the swamps are these crypts. You'll need the swamp key to use them, and you'll basically find lots and lots of iron in there. You will need to beat down the Elder Boss to acquire that key. And before that, well, you don't have really good access to iron. So, but these crypts, they don't contain any other enemies compared to the outside. So, this red fiery glow back there, here we go. You'll meet skeletons there, but that's not really what the interesting part. The interesting part are these surtlings. Surtlings, well, you might still know them of their... You might still know their cores, which you have farmed in the Black Forest. Here in the swamps, you can just farm them directly. Surtlings drop surtling cores and coal. So basically, you're really good to go. So against the skeletons, I really like to use the blunt weaponry. And here's a fun thing, and I don't know if the devs made that intentionally like this. The surtlings do use fire damage, but being wet here all day shields you very well against fire damage. So therefore, the damage of these guys, as you see here, I'm getting struck by lots and lots of their fireballs, but, well, there's not too much damage behind that. So, yeah, that's the surtlings. I consider them some of the most harmless encounters you can have here in the swamps, but yeah. So, what's left is now to talk about the elite enemies here. So basically, whenever there's a star at the enemies, that's really, really a problem. Multi-starred Drog, for example, are really powerful, and don't take them lightly. They are really, really powerful enough to bring you into deep trouble, even if you're normally able to deal with the swamp easily. Plus that, at night times, there's another enemy you can meet here, which drops you chains. So the enemy I'm talking about are Wraiths. I'm sadly not able to spawn one here, but Wraiths are just straightforward melee fighters. They just float towards you and start whacking you. There's not much about them. There's not much to know about them, except for they really hit like a truck, and you should be ready to deal with a lot of HP and a lot of damage. But you'll need those chains, and you will only find chains apart from that down here in those crypts. So, here we go, just marking one for later. And that's basically what you can expect from the swamps. I strongly recommend you to take it slowly. Never rush too quickly through these swamps, especially when there's water around. Always try to have a certain stockpile of stamina left. And yeah, upgrade your items as good as you can. That's really, really important. Once you grew used to the environment here, the challenges are less and less. Oh yeah, also there's one more thing. I sadly didn't find one of those trees yet, but sometimes you'll find some glowing green patches on the trees. You won't be able to fell the trees which are harboring these green patches. They are neon green, glowing sacks. Hard to not recognize them. You can harvest them, but you need to hit them with a weapon. They basically are a source of green color for the game, and Yeah, well, I really was hoping I would discover one while I was doing this video, but no. But they're really, really easy to notice, and once you see one, you'll know what I was talking about. They have the same greenish glow as these torches here. Alrighty, friends, so I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope you'll have a lot of fun with those swamps, because once you get used to it, it ain't that bad either. So one last piece of advice, though, as with all biomes, during night times, the biome is way more dangerous. So if you're struggling with the situation here in general, try to avoid going here at night times alone. Bring your friends if you have any. Also makes things easier. And oh yeah, let's talk about the Oozer. The Oozer is not really worth talking about. He's just a blob. And also blobs are very vulnerable against blood damage, as we see here. My mace did short work of them. Alright, so feel free to drop me comments down below if there's anything you feel like I left out, or if there's anything you want to ask about in particular, just ask away. And of course, leave a like or a subscribe if you did like that content and you want to support the channel even more. I'd be super happy if you did so. No matter what, I hope you're having a nice day, and see you guys soon. Bye-bye.